From the United Nations, I'm Melissa Fleming, and my guest this week is Máximo Torero Cullen, Chief Economist at the UN Food and Agricultural Organization, or FAO. Welcome, Maximo.
No, thank you very much, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You are an award-winning economist, and I guess you could have chosen almost any field to work in. What made you choose to work on food security and hunger?
So I'm an economist, and why I'm an economist is a very special story. Essentially, I applied to the universities in Peru, and the university I applied had 3 careers. And I selected the career of my father, which was accountant. But my brother decided to change it, so he put me in economics. That's how I ended in economics.
Your brother changed?
Yeah, my choice.
Your choice?
Yes, he was smart. I am grateful to him.
An older brother.
Yeah. So basically, I ended studying economics, but I did the 3 careers. So I did economics, administration, and accounting. Since I started the university, I had to work, so I did research. And I did research in rural poverty, but mostly focusing on technology. So I was working a lot on science and technology. And then I worked in a think tank in Peru for a long time. And then I moved to IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute. That's where I started working really on food security and nutrition, and not on rural poverty, because in Peru I was working in rural poverty. But that was after my PhD.
So have you thanked your brother enough?
Always, every day.
Where in Peru did you grow up?
In Lima.
In the city. So you were a city boy.
I was a city boy. I was a lucky city boy with half parents that decided to invest all their money in my human capital. So I was lucky in that sense. But later on, when I started working, I had to walk across the whole country. So I know Peru super well, from the coast to the Andes to the jungle. No?
What is Peru like for you?
Peru is a beautiful country, amazing food. But also it's a country that has a lot of diversity and heterogeneity among the country. You have a capital where most of the population is concentrated, which is, even in the capital, you see the huge inequalities, even deeper than what you see in the Andes or in the jungle, because people migrate and they don't have nothing, basically. But when you go to the mountains, you also see that there are households which are living in the top of a hill at 4,000 meters or higher. They don't have access to anything, but they live there.
Are they happy?
That's I think something that I have learned with rural people is that they value a lot their time, and they value a lot their peace. So I don't know if they are happy. I don't know if their kids are happy. Maybe the parents are okay and they are happy. The kids, of course, face bigger challenges because they want to grow, no? And they are normally restricted by their own norms of these indigenous people. And by the isolation, no? Isolation where they live. So I won't say they are unhappy. I say that within their environment, they are okay. But again, it opens the window to bring opportunities, no? And how we can give those kids, those younger generation people in those households, very isolated households, opportunity to migrate or to do other things outside, no? And that starts with education. And that's what my country lacked a lot. No, you have kids that had to walk 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon to go to school. So imagine, no, you wake up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., you walk, you arrive at 7, and then you walk back after classes at 3 p.m., you arrive to your house at 6 p.m. So you only have 1 meal a day if you are lucky. So, but those kids do it. They walk and they go. And that's what shocks you. No? You see kids that are in this. Like, for example, I worked in Cajamarca in a place called Pomacanchis. What I saw there was these kids that basically walk all the time. But when we give them something that was atypical to them, we connect them to internet suddenly. We built a lab in their schools. It was amazing how fast they learn, especially the girls. Yacanora, sorry, it was not Pomacanchis. Pomacanchis is in Cusco, Yacanora. So the girls were learning so fast because we did some tests to them using Wii games to understand their cognitive ability as a baseline to then do an intervention. And then you see how much opportunities you can have there, no? And how much you can change the life of these kids with very little.
But apparently, in that experiment, from what I understand, you were looking into their cognitive abilities because you were also looking into the nutrition they weren't receiving.
These kids were anemic, so we test for anemia. And there is a linkage between anemia and malnutrition with cognitive ability. So we wanted to see what was at the baseline level, the level of cognitive ability. But we did it with games, no? Which was very easy to do, and they love it. They never had used this type of equipment, and they learn very quickly. And then with the intervention that we did, it's a program called Happy Faces. The intervention we did was basically to provide information to the kids through internet so that they can make choices. So the first choice that we ask them to make is to take an anemia pill, iron pill. But what the video will tell them is, look, this is the specific location where you have to go to get the anemia pill. Of course, we get all the authorizations from the parents and all the IRB protocols. Now, the question of the research that we were doing was, okay, is the messenger, what should be the messenger? So the message was the same. You need to take an iron pill for 60 days to move out of anemia consecutively. But then we have to test the best messenger because we wanted to see how we can transmit information to kids. So we work with 3 types of messages, the same message, but with 3 transmitters of that message. One was a soccer player. The second was
a famous soccer player.
A famous soccer player in Peru. This was done in Peru. The second one was the doctor of the place. And the third one was an official of the local government. Now, why we choose a soccer player, not a volleyball player? Because Peru is very good. In those days, Peru was very good at volleyball. It was because the kids, the girls and the boys prefer a soccer player. So we found a soccer player called Solano, which was very popular in Peru. He did it for free. But the message was identical, no? And then we randomized the message to the kids. So the beauty of the project was that I was able to set up a lab to the kids of internet. We connect the internet from the municipality because in Peru at that point in time, all the municipalities have to have a connection. We just did it with antennas. So the kids had a lab. We put a teacher. And then every day that the kids go to the lab, they will have to put a password, and then a video will pop up. This is a secondary school. So what we found is that the message of the soccer player was a huge success. There were lines of people taking the iron pills. Not only them, they were bringing their family, their brothers, but we couldn't allow that because they had to be cleared by the parents. And then we follow up and measure again cognitive ability, and we found that the kids were performing a lot better because of this. They were no longer sleeping in the classes and so on. So that was the first part. The second part, which is linked to what I do now, was, okay, now that I know my message works and I can transmit the message, how I can use messages that will be helpful for their parents to do changes in what they produce and how they produce. Because in these areas, extension services are very restricted, and normally parents don't understand what the extensionist is doing and how they are teaching them to avoid a pest or a disease, like the fall armyworm, for example, or the flu for the chickens that they have. So we provide scientific-based videos, very simple videos, where we had a very low-cost or zero-cost way of doing it. Like for fall armyworm was a trap.
What is the worm?
Fall armyworm.
I'm sorry, I've never.
It's
heard.
one of the most problematic worms in maize production in the world, in corn. Yeah? It's everywhere. It's a big problem. So the one solution is to put a molasses trap, which is zero cost, no? And then we check with the parents if the kids were transmitting the messages. We found they did, and we found that they implement some of the practice. So this is what we call upward intergenerational
you
mobility.
got the kids to go back to the parents.
Oh, yes. Now, of course, the people looking at the work will say, okay, but it depends on the context. There are countries and realities that parents will never hear the kids. We tried in Uganda, and it also worked. So, we need to... So
you're providing an educational service on one hand with the connectivity. They're learning how to use the computer. They're learning about agriculture. And they have another job to go back and teach it to their parents.
Exactly. And for me, if the experiment didn't work, they at least had the computers and they had the internet.
And if it worked, their parents had better crops, and maybe the kids wouldn't be anemic.
Yeah, maybe. But you see, it was a win-win experiment for me. There was no... So it was beautiful. I love it. It's one of the biggest, nicest programs that I implemented.
Was there a moment when you wanted to dedicate yourself to international service rather than going into the corporate world?
No, look, the way I never wanted to go to the corporate, to the private sector. No, I had my same cohort. I have friends that study like me, and some of them decide to go to investment banks. Now they are retired and they are living very happy. I'm still working, but that's okay. But I never had that interest. I really like to work in the type of work that I do right now. Why I decided to move back to Washington? There was a simple reason. When you are a PhD and you are very well trained and you go back to a country that they still doesn't have the critical mass, you make a lot of money. It's very easy to earn money because you have the network, you have the contacts, and you are one of the few. You are like an independent entrepreneur, basically. So I didn't like that, and therefore I decided that it was time for me to go back and to try to go again because I never lost the contact with the international world. I was teaching in UCLA, I was teaching in Germany. So I spent 6 to 9 months in Peru, but was moving around a lot. But again, it was not enough to assure that I was able to produce things that I was confident that I was going to do policies that really were correct or as close as I can. So I went back to this think tank, international think tank, which is International Food Policy Research Institute, which is based in Washington. So it was a very strong, solid think tank with very extremely good quality people. They were the first ones evaluating progress in Mexico, for example. Super good economists, which I respected a lot. So that helped me a lot to go back on track of my academic record, and that's where I started to publish a lot. And that helped me a lot to keep improving my tools, and keeping the frontier of the tools, which is something that you need to keep. Because at the end of the line, people don't understand, but what we do, I can really change the life of people because I can really influence a policy. And if I am wrong, I'm going to mess the life of many people. So you have to be very careful. And that's why I always say some people say, Lord, you can publish an article in a super journal, but then when you implement, you do something simpler. You don't need to go. I say, no, you have to do it as sophisticated as possible with the best techniques. And then you implement. That's okay, but you need to implement what you show worked, not a simple version that doesn't follow those standards. And there I spent 14 years in IFPRI. After a year, I became director of a division. I built a team from scratch, basically, which I built a superb team, which still I am working with many of them. And then at some point, I decided that it was time to learn a little bit more about the financing world. And that's when I moved to the World Bank. So I was a board member. I was executive director of the World Bank for 2 years. And I knew the beginning and the end because these are slots of years that they give you. So I had an entry and an exit, which was good, was what I wanted. And the idea was to come back to IFPRI. I had my job secure if I wanted to come back. But then suddenly this option of FAO opened. I applied to it. I went through a very tough process. And then I went to Rome. And I was supposed to be in Rome for 1 year because there was a change of director general. And then I am now 8 years, 3 months, and 20-something days.
You even count the days.
And it has been a great experience because there is a big difference to what you do in research, which is like experiments and test things. The bank teach me a lot about private sector investment and how to manage financing. And I knew the bank because I work for the bank a lot, but it's different to be there and be the one assessing and approving all the loans of the countries and understanding how IFC works, for example, the private arm. But at FAO, you have a huge capacity of implementing things with ministries. And really at FAO, we can really implement things at a scale. So there I have been working in designing big programs. We have one which I love, which is hand in hand.
It's what?
Hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
What it does is basically works with countries, our members. We have 84 members right now in the program. And the members have to ask to become part of this program. And this program, what it does is uses data, geospatial data in the country to identify territories within the country where there is enormous agricultural potential. And agriculture in FAO means livestock, crops, forestry, fishery, aquaculture. So it's like you have a country and you build up the mountains. You see mountains, and the mountains mean how much money you can make. And what we are looking is for areas that I can move somebody from $1 PPP per capita per day to 7, because that is what will move them sustainable out of poverty and hunger. But they are not there. They are in 1, they are in 1 point something. So then the next question is why we identify those areas where there is a lot of poverty, but there is this agricultural potential. The question is, okay, how you you resolve the constraints that they have so they can achieve that potential that they have. So these are called green areas. So green areas in our territorial approach is areas, a lot of potential, $7 per capita per day, a lot of inefficiencies. We go there, we take our experts, we identify those bottlenecks, and then we build investment plans. And then FAO behaves like a bridge builder. So we bring banks, we bring traditional donors, and we bring private sector. And the argument is that in this process, we de-risk them technically because we provide detailed information and certified investment plans. The banks de-risk financially. And our job is to convince private sector to invest in these projects. So we calculate all the returns, we calculate how much emissions, if it is sustainable in terms of biodiversity, of water. And they are super nice investment projects. No? If you want, I can tell you some of them. But
I would love an example of...
No, look, I can give you a very nice example in Dominican Republic. No? Dominican Republic, is next to Haiti. And they had a lot of migration from Haiti. But the Haitians are very good farmers. And in the border between Dominican Republic and Haiti, the government decided, the private sector decided to do a huge investment of a resort because there is beautiful beaches, amazing beaches, like virgin beaches that nobody was touching them. And now they are building a huge resort, similar to Punta Cana, no? But they wanted to create a new hotspot of tourism in Dominican Republic. Now, what that means is that you will have a lot of demand for food, especially high-value commodities, no? Fruits, vegetables, and so on. So you have a demand there secured. You have these amazing farmers migrating. So the government decided to develop a piece of land in one of these green zones. And the job of the project was to train these farmers, create the facilities for the standards, and these farmers will sell to these hotels. So it was a secure business, no? You control migration, you use their skill sets, you develop them more, you create infrastructure. There was an irrigation project there. So there was water, there was good land. So that's the project. So it's a beautiful project that resolves a problem of hunger, poverty, resolve migration, and also make the resorts happier because they will have very close by good quality food. No?
Did you visit it yourself?
Yeah, I went there, of course. Before it deployed, we designed the whole thing with the government.
So do you ever go and get to see the fruits of your designs?
No, not yet.
No.
We're planning to go, I think in September. No, in the last week of October, we will go back there. Because to get there, you have to go in helicopter. It's not easy to get there.
The guests are eating the fruits and vegetables from those farms. Okay, you need to go and check it out yourself and taste them.
But that's one. Another one is potatoes, for example. No, in my country, Andean potatoes, which are grown at 4,700 meters, are very nutritious. But farmers plant all at the same time. So all of them harvest at the same time. Every year they complain that prices are too low because there is a lot of potatoes, low prices, and they ask the government to buy them. But this has happened historically. So under hand in hand, we have these green zones where they were the potato producers. We needed to increase value added. So we worked with companies, and there was a plant that was developed to process the potatoes into frozen potatoes and potato chips. They were able to start exporting. These potatoes are amazing. So if you look at them, they're amazing, especially the frozen ones. And then the challenge for us was, so we got all this investment in place. The company was built. There was innovation because they figured out the way to be able to freeze the potatoes so that you can use them across the year.
Can you get an Andes potato in New York?
Yes.
Are you worried about, there's a lot of talk about the quality of soil and the degrading of nutrition in the products that are grown because of different farming practices. Is this an issue in terms?
Oh, of course. We look at all. So one of the mottos that we have in FAO is good food for all for today and tomorrow. So good food means healthy diet for all. And the today is produce more today. But if you want to have the same amount of healthy diets tomorrow, you need to be careful on the quality of your soils. You need to be careful on how you manage water. You need to be careful on your biodiversity. And you need to be careful on reducing emissions. So that's the sustainability part. Why is this so important? Biodiversity is important because if something happens to the maize that I am growing, I need to find a variety which is resistant to that problem or to that disease. And the only way I will find it is if I have biodiversity in seeds, and that's the seed banks. So I go and look in my seed bank, okay, which is the variety that is resistant to this type of pest or disease? And then I replicate it. I solve the problem, okay? So biodiversity is central. Water, as you know, water will be one of the major problems in the future. We are living in a world of water stress. So we need to be as efficient as possible in the use of water and increase the productivity of the water. So every drop of water has a value that we need to take into account. And the emissions, of course, is because you don't want the climate problems that we're facing. But the food sector, the agri-food sector, the beauty that people don't understand. So if you go to a COP, they criticize because we create methane emissions, we misuse soils, we use 70% of the water. But we give the food to people. We need to keep giving the right to food. You don't want a beautiful planet without people.
No, I mean, it's not just people needing to eat the right to food, as you say, and also the right to healthy food, but it's getting food at all. It's more than 600 million people who are hungry. Does that keep you awake at night?
I have been through many problems in life, which I have learned a lot as an economist. I was in the hyperinflation in Peru. I was in wars in Peru, and terrorism that was there. I have been in massive earthquake situations. So I have seen a lot. But I never expected how complex this sector will become. So after a year happens COVID-19. No? And when you look at COVID-19 at the beginning, I don't know if you recall, but everything was health.
Yeah.
No? How we can keep people alive and so on. They forgot about food. So you can move health things around the world, but you couldn't move food because the ports were not ready to assure the safety of those vessels moving food.
So they were sending masks and ventilators
but
and
they forgot
vaccines.
That we need to move food. So the prices of food start to increase. And many countries start to put export restrictions. And then we came with a lemma recording from my house or saying there is no health without food. And we start talking with traders and working with governments. And then food was elevated to the level of health. But that taught us as FAO that, look, logistics are central in agriculture. And then we start to get prepared to that. Thanks God there was not a food crisis because there was no need to be a food crisis. There was enough food. And then happens the war in Ukraine. No? Over the night, this started. They blocked the Black Sea, one of the key exporters of wheat. Ukraine, over the night, decided to stop exporting. Sunflower was not moving out. And then countries, as response, block fertilizers from Russian Federation and natural gas. Fertilizers prices move up. Now, the good news for the farmers was commodity prices were high. So the increase in input prices were compensated by the increase in commodity prices. Therefore, they could survive, in difference to what is happening now. But then what happens is we start to work with the UN to open the Black Sea with the Secretary General Initiative. We were very involved on that. The Black Sea is open. Luckily, food start to move. Prices start to settle. Fertilizers end moving at a higher price, but it was a boom for the fertilizer industry in those days. So we were recovering from the war, which still continues, but you see that we were resilient because the reduction, one of the big consequences of the war in Ukraine is that Ukraine is no longer a key exporter of cereals, of wheat. What happened then is that other countries respond to it. So the supply response happened. Brazil produced more wheat, the US produced more wheat. So Ukraine no longer was a problem, although the wars continues. But now then comes the Strait of Hormuz, and they close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, what people don't understand is that in difference to the war in Ukraine, this is a supply shock that is restricting 20 to 30% of the key inputs for agriculture. So it's oil, fertilizers, natural gas, sulfur for phosphates. All that is out of the world, is out of the market, no longer exists. Okay, so prices increase of those inputs, but you cannot have a supply response like in the time of Ukraine with the wheat, because to produce those inputs, you require investments of 3 to 4 years. So the supply response will never happen. Okay, so it's a real supply shock. And the only solution under a supply shock is that you consume less. And that's what we are starting to observe. In oil also, you have to consume less fuel. No? Now,
how does that work in agriculture?
Agriculture is terrible because I came to understand that 70% of the pumping for irrigation is using diesel. All the agriculture of Australia is with diesel. So imagine these farmers are being affected enormously. So farmers have to make choices. I produce the same and I go into bankruptcy with the same inputs, or I produce with less inputs and therefore I have lower yields, or I shift to commodities which need less nitrogen, like moving from wheat and corn to soybeans, or I sell my production to biofuels. So those are the hard choices and they have already made the choices, because also something that people don't get is that agriculture has a calendar, has a crop calendar, and you cannot change the calendar. It's based on climate, it's based on agroecological conditions. So after 90 days, all the crop calendars of the world were impacted. So we have affected this season. Now we are going to affect the next season. So we're in a tough situation. Luckily, we had very good harvests before. That's why prices of commodities are not so high. But rice is increasing, soybeans is increasing, and durum wheat is increasing. And this could evolve even worse if El Nino hits harder. No? And then you see all the complexity of this sector, no? Logistical problems, geopolitics, and then you have climate, all at the same time. No? I don't want to call it the perfect storm, because we don't know with El Nino what will happen. It depends on if there is more rain and where, and if there is less rain and how much of the big exporting countries will impact it. But of course, the expectation is by the end of the year, prices will go up. And then it takes time for the food prices. So one thing is the wheat, the other thing is the bread, the durum wheat or the pasta. That's different. Like only 5% of the bread is wheat. The rest is energy, is water, is other things, labor. The same with pasta. That takes 3 to 6 months to transmit. So the increase, we will start to feel it. If you go here, food is more expensive now than when I came a few months ago. And across the world, it's starting to happen, but people don't feel it yet. It's different to your pump for your car. Oil.
That's almost immediate.
That's immediate. Food takes time. But we will feel it, and then people will start to react. But we need to do as much as we can to assure that we inform the world what amount of food we have, to avoid export restrictions, to avoid less food, and to avoid uncertainties, because uncertainties by itself can increase prices. So that's a little bit the job that we have. That's what keeps me awake, because I have to be like this with the numbers. I need to know what is happening, because if a government asks us, we need to help them and we need to respond. And I have an amazing team. But we are basically working 7 days of the week, and anytime we are on call and we have to go and do things. No?
Is there anything that can come out of this that could be hopeful? For example, the Secretary General is hopeful that this will spark a faster transition to renewable energy, because countries just don't want to be so dependent.
No, for sure. There has been a huge revolution in transition and diversification of the energy mix in the last years since Ukraine. The velocity of the transition, you go to China, 60% of the cars in the roads are green cars. The US have moved slower, but many European countries have also accelerated. So transition in the global way has happened and is happening and it needs to happen faster.
What about in the agricultural sector?
But in the agricultural sector, no. That's what was a surprise to me. That 70% of the pumping is with diesel pumps was a surprise. And that's a win-win situation, because if a bank has to invest, the World Bank or the IDB or the CAF or the Asian Development Bank or the African Development Bank, it's the perfect investment. You just invest in renewable energy. It's sustainable, less emissions, and diversify your risk. We
have seen terrible hunger in the last years in places like Sudan and in Gaza. Does this, I know that you're in Rome with, your neighbor is the World Food Program, and I know that you work very closely together. How does that make you feel when you see hunger like that? Oh, it's terrible, no? And I think stories are different, no? Gaza should have not happened. It's something that shouldn't have happened, and it's something that is dramatic. Our job, again, as civil servants, we have to respect our job, which is technical, is to provide evidence to try to resolve the problem. I mean, in Gaza, one of the big issues was just the food was there to deliver. It was the access. But also it must have been very painful to see crops being destroyed. But they would destroy, all the agro part was destroyed. Our job was to take care of livestock, take care of plants. We were criticized because while people were in hunger, we were trying to deliver feed for animals. But
people must understand that an animal can feed many people. So the effect is indirect, but super important. So a lot of challenges and things that shouldn't have happened that happen. But then you have situations like Sudan and DRC and other countries which are in this complete problem of conflicts, internal conflicts, and that we cannot create a solution. Haiti, for example, is another situation. So we have to innovate. We have to think differently. Like in Haiti, we're trying to create growth poles in the south and in the north. Forget about the capital and see if that helps to reduce the pressure over the capital. And that will help us at least to have food available for people to eat. No, in South Sudan, part of hand in hand, for example, South Sudan, the climate is perfect for rice. So we develop a project on 1,000 hectares on rice, and they can scale this up. So it's a resistant variety that people can consume, and then you can trade within Africa. So I think we need to innovate case by case and try to find solutions. But yes, the combination of conflict, climate, and slowdowns and downturns is a pretty complex situation. No?
Do you get frustrated?
A lot, because sometimes it gets to a point that you bring evidence. You have your teams working like crazy to bring evidence to others so that they can implement things. And then because of egos and because of things that nobody understands, those things are not implemented. And that's where you lose patience, no? Because it doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. It's not their money. It's the money of others that you are being given to manage properly. And you should manage properly. But we don't have a mechanism of accountability, which is a complexity.
Is there anything that you're hopeful about?
I'm always hopeful. For me, I am impressed that despite all these shocks, in COVID-19, you had food. In the war in Ukraine, you had food. Today, we have food. Could be more expensive, but we have food. So these farmers has really shown how strong they are and how resilient they are. And we need to help them.
You've been living in Rome for 8 years. Do you like living there?
Yeah, for me, Rome is beautiful. And I am, so in Italian, my job is Capo Maximo in front of Circo Massimo. What else you can ask?
Did you learn the language?
No, I don't have time. My wife learned the language, I didn't. But in Italy, you can speak Spanish and people will understand you.
Yeah?
Yeah, Italy. So Rome is different to Italy because Italy is different. And you have a Milan, which is like any European country. But Rome is kind of a beautiful, chaotic equilibrium, which is very similar to my country in that sense. People are very nice, and it's a place that love food and treat food in the way it should be. No, I'm very happy there. But although I spent in net 3 months in Rome, I am all around the world, so I am very little in Rome. But it's an amazing place, and which have hosted us beautiful. So I'm very happy there.
And your wife tolerates all your travel?
Yeah, she's a great woman.
You have kids?
Yes, I have 2 kids.
Did they follow in your footsteps?
Not at all.
No.
They follow her mother. One is a film writer, and my daughter is an environmental person. So she just finished her undergrad in environmental science, but she also likes a lot art history. So she's doing art history and languages. She loves Arabic. So very different to what I do, which I love. I think is great. They choose complex careers, but I am sure they will do well.
Oh, that's nice. Can you ever imagine a world without hunger?
I really hope, because it's possible. That's the issue. Right now we are saying for South America it's possible to achieve the 2030 goal. Asia will be a little bit more difficult because of the magnitude, but again, they are moving very fast in reducing hunger. And Africa has to change. But I think Africa, like the song of Shakira, is the time for Africa.
It's the time. Why is it the time for Africa?
Because it's a huge opportunity for them. They have a huge space to grow in agriculture. They have land that has been basically organic. They use very little fertilizers. It's governments that need to fix their act and start to work better.
And what do most farmers have in common?
I think all of them have enormous amount of knowledge. They really know what they do. We normally used to say, okay, this farmer doesn't know how to grow. No. Be careful. He knows how to grow in the conditions he is and with the restrictions he has. And that sometimes we don't understand. So farmers, because of that, have a very high discount rate. No? What it means, I can offer you $10 tomorrow, $1 today. Farmers will pick the one because they have such a budget constraint that they want the money now. They need to use it now. And we don't understand those hyperbolic discount rates. No? So I always appreciate the knowledge of farmers. I remember when I was in Cajamarca, I went there 23rd of December. And there is only one airport, there is only one place to go down. So I was in the school with my kids and the school, not my kids or the kids of the school. And the farmer comes to me and says, it was a shiny, beautiful day. It's going to rain today. I say, no, there's no way it's going to rain. And if it rains, the plane doesn't go down. So I arrived to the plane. I was going to lose Christmas. And there starts a terrible rain. I see the plane up. It was never going to go down. But luckily, there was a smaller plane, a very little plane that came because of mining. So I saw that the little plane was landing, so I went and buy the tickets for me and my team. So the plane landed, we ran to the plane and we left. But you see, the knowledge of this farmer, nobody will tell you there was going to rain that day. There were no clouds, but the guy said it's going to rain, and he was right. So we need to value that a lot. Technology helps, of course. We can bring technology, try to give them as much as we can, but never don't value their knowledge.
Thank you, Maximo. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure.
Your knowledge, which is remarkable and fascinating. Hopefully we'll achieve all of those goals and more governments will listen to your advice.
I'm sure we will work out. Thank you.